1. Introduction. RAWSEP View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only. For home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable. Wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burned tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom, the eco-design wood stove, and international convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP View. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary. Episode 57 DJ, February 23, 2025. Trump tell all German elections and explosive goggles against Russia. In episode 57 DJ 1, United States new tell-all book about Trump, including RAWSEP View about the Trump effect. 2. Germany, the SPD Labor Party of Olaf Scholz, is on the ballot on February 23, 2025. 3. Ukraine, with explosive goggles, Ukraine sought to blast Russian drone operators. 4. Russia is wooing Western energy companies' main content. United States new tell-all book about Trump. Nonfiction. The election just ended, and we already have a new Michael Wolff book in All or Nothing RAWSEP View. Is there an equivalent book in Russia about Putin? After spending 4 years thankfully ignoring Trump, this book gives those who are now paying attention to Trump some explanation, however sordid, of the Trump motivation for seeking a second presidency. Can the reason why we are now living through this arbitrary, nonsensical abuse of power be simply that one individual is seeking revenge against the majority of the American people because he was brought to justice for a few acts of the many acts harmful to others that he committed in his life? It seems that Trump will not gain much materially by firing government workers indiscriminately, which leaves psychological motivation as a probable rationale for the Trump harmful actions. True crime is a big genre on TV, and when finished watching episodes of 48 Hours or Dateline, more likely than not the viewer sees that the criminal who harmed others resulting in their deaths is brought to justice. However, that is not how crime solving or justice for victims often seems to work or not work in real life. Life does not often tie up with a bow and explanation for conduct that harms others and ends their lives. Life in 2025 so far does not provide a rational explanation for Trump conduct as explained in a court of law. In a court of law, Trump is only a white-collar criminal whose legally proven harmful acts can be listed as mostly financial. Frankly, the editor of RAWSEP turned her attention away from all the ways Trump signaled his psychological turn toward harming others in his first term, except for noting the glaring incompetence and what then seemed primarily a semi-pathetic grasping by Trump for non-scientific methods for dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, which Trump distraction did in fact cause many unnecessary deaths in 2020 and beyond among people who continued to follow his shockingly harmful advice. In what can most charitably be described as a sheep-like manner, people died unnecessarily by following his advice as the President of the United States, and the people who came in contact with those people also died in unconscionable numbers when they also followed his lead and did not wear masks when asked to before vaccines were available. Now Trump has installed a head of Health and Human Services who repeats the same anti-scientific views, setting us up for more unnecessary deaths in the future when COVID recurs or when another pandemic strikes. Add to that the unnecessary firings of CDC and NIH staff leaving the United States, leaving gaping holes in the previously existing modern health infrastructure that leads to research on disease and monitoring of public health measures that can save lives. So the stage is set for unnecessary tragedy in the realm of human health, all from the malign motivation of one individual. That individual is not exceptional in any way, and in the view of the editor of RAWSEP, is lacking in normal human qualities that would explain why any one person would vote for him. The same can obviously be said for Putin. The two people in the world who most lack empathy for others to begin with are in charge of the lives of millions of people. Putin has caused hundreds of thousands of lives to end just in Ukraine. Trump caused unnecessary COVID deaths of his own people in the United States. It is necessary to state those cold, unflattering facts in order for action to be taken by some branch of the United States government to stop future unnecessary deaths. That is the least that should be said about this sad situation. Is The solution action by the two other branches of the United States federal government? It seems this is the answer to an internal United States potential human health problem that threatens to become a threat to United States national security when Trump and Putin planned their next moves together. American people were living their lives and contributing to society by serving in the United States government. Each person who loses their federally funded livelihood through no fault of their own is harmed by these unnecessary firings of federal workers. We as citizens also are harmed. When our tax refunds are delayed, or when we become sick and the research has not been done for cures for our illnesses, the worry this causes all thinking people in the United States does not benefit anyone in the United States. We are divided in the mind of Trump into halves, and have nots. The overriding Trump reason for these mass federal firings is to free up money to justify tax breaks for the rich. For some reason, people who were not rich voted for Trump, although these middle income and low income people will not benefit financially. Democrats are criticized for not countering the propaganda that led to this mass lemming-like behavior that resulted in people voting against their own economic interests, while somehow believing that costs would go down for the average American. Instead, in 2025 under Trump, costs are going up now, and costs are projected to go up further into 2025 at least. The editor of RAWSEP is forced to pay attention to these sad facts. The editor of RAWSEP would instead like to focus on the benefits still clinging to life from the Biden administration, because the ones that benefit human health of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners the most are the still existing heat pump rebates of up to $8,000 based on a sliding income scale. The adverse health effects of breathing in PM 2.5 from indoor residential wood burning can be avoided by installation of now cheap heat pumps when combined with rebates instead of the always unnecessary indoor residential wood burning for home heating. Individuals in the United States can still take the individual action of using heat pumps, and so by powerful or empowering individual action avoid harming the human health of their near neighbors, and even contribute to slowing climate change incrementally. The firing of federal workers is a mighty distraction, and more than a distraction, each firing is a preventable human tragedy for each one of the workers who just goes to work, tries their best, and has immeasurably contributed to bettering American society in a positive way. Up to this point, we as Americans are also distracted from dealing with real climate change and real air pollution from industrial wood burning and all other solid fuel burning, including fossil fuel burning. Also, the attempts to stop development of clean energy generation from wind and solar and power plants, and the attempts to stop clean energy electric car development are not what the American people need in order to live healthy and productive lives into the future. There is no positive plan by Trump to replace what he is taking away, except the negative plan to provide tax breaks for the rich who do not need them. This is all obvious to any thinking person. So how did we get to this point? The Democrats are supposed to save us all. Democrats would like to save us all, but have been unable to up to this point. The solution is not to blame the Democrats. It is no exaggeration to say that all Americans must point to the person Trump, who has been put in a position to act in the most destructive way possible. Now, toward all American people, there is no room for attention to be paid to anyone else but Trump. Is there a great Trump's psychological motive for this destructive behavior? Is Trump the figurehead of a movement that is benefiting economically from this behavior? By having to deal with this Trump problem, we as Americans are being distracted from solving real pressing problems concerning public health and climate change that require scientific and medical research, and this distraction is costing Americans economically. If we are middle class and lower class, excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization, The New York Times, February 21, 2025. In early 2021, after losing the presidency to Joe Biden, an embittered Donald Trump returned to brood at his Florida golf club. The book is gripping. The book is a veritable harvest of slime, sycophancy, and sleaze that tells the story of Trump 2.0, an aggrieved boxer, as people such as Democrats and establishment Republicans sought to hold Trump to account for his transgressions against democracy. Trump concocted his own scheme. The presidency was the revenge that had to be wreaked on his behalf. The proposition was absolutist: elect me or destroy me. Texts from anonymous sources find their way into printed text verbatim, alongside secret recordings of donor meetings and Trump ramblings in response to all or nothing. Trump staffers took to X, calling the book fiction. The Wolff repertorial style can veer into what seems like mind reading, but what could be more appropriate for a president who exists in an alternate reality? Trump gets the biographer he deserves. Trump social media tics, such as sad and Trump verbal idiosyncrasies, end up in the book. The legal cases brought against Trump by Democratic district attorneys only spurred Trump onward, putting him in front of cameras where he talked of a conspiracy against him. Ordinary people began to donate. $4 million flowed into his coffers in the 24 hours after he became criminally indicted, and politicians who had shunned Trump over the January 6th insurrection returned. Trump understood that solutions to his problems at court could be solved at the ballot box. Most of the main characters in the book are Trump employees, a man largely without friends or intimates. Wolff says Trump defaulted to his paid companions Boris Epstein and Natalie Hart. Boris seems eager to step into the shoes of the Trump legal fixer of 40 years ago, Roy Cohn, but Wolff reports that the rest of the Trump legal team were never sure if Boris was wearing a wire and cooperating with a special counsel investigation into the January 6, 2021 uprising. Natalie runs after the president with a printer in her backpack, printing off flattering articles. By the final 3 sections of All or Nothing, Trump has bounced back from his trials. Boris is distanced in the wake of pay-to-play allegations. J.D. Vance, whom Wolff says Trump hesitated to choose as his running mate until seconds before he offered him the job, begins to take a central role after a rally in October where Elon Musk paraded around in a t-shirt that rode up his stomach. The president asked what is wrong with this guy? Everyone useful is valued, however, and Trump and Musk are soon buddies, the two most bumptious, overbearing, and successful men in America, each lacking basic social skills. In the same room, no wonder that the Trump campaign fretted about them falling out. By the end of the Wolff book, we are left again with a deflated Trump, an underdog who has won and seems to hate every minute of it. Will Trump be tempted to light fires to see what chaos will ensue? To Germany, the SPD Labour Party of Olaf Scholz is on the ballot on February 23. 2025 on the ropes. Olaf Scholz keeps punching the German chancellor, who defied calls to step aside after his government fell apart, is down in the polls, but insisting he can still win. RAWSEP View the AfD in Germany and Trump in America pose similar threats to necessary efforts to protect human health and similar threats to necessary efforts to slow climate change. The SPD under Scholz and the Greens under Robert Habeck are the main German parties in support of German public health and climate change mitigation government efforts, as seen by the Labour voter example, which ends the article. The SPD was also founded in support of labor unions. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, February 22, 2025. A month ago, no one would have ever mistaken the German, often taciturn chancellor for it. Aggressive political campaigner Scholz spoke for 50 minutes before supporters in Dortmund, one of only 2 German cities where his center-left Social Democrats are projected to win the majority. He trumpeted his government's achievements like raising the minimum wage and bridging the loss of Russian gas after the invasion in Ukraine. He told the crowd he could still win, and he took a swipe at President Trump. If you translate what transactional means specifically, Scholz said, alighting on a word often used to describe the American president's approach to politics. It means I only think of myself, and I only do what benefits me. Nearly 2,000 Social Democrats jumped to their feet and cheered. Scholz, 66, has been relentlessly optimistic in the race. That is because he was the only one who believed he could win in 2021 when his party was stuck at 14% before catching up in a few short months. To win, Scholz has clearly relaxed in the final weeks of the campaign. Instead of standing rigidly behind his lecterns at recent televised debates, he leaned against them from the side. According to opinion polls, SDP, the Scholz party, is expected to come in with half the support of the conservative Christian Democrat Party, CDU, of Friedrich Merz. The February 23, 2025 snap election is being held because the coalition government Scholz led collapsed in November 2024. The Chancellor Scholz Social Democrat Party SDP tenure with its coalition will likely be cut short by a sluggish economy, a shrinking export market, and political infighting between the 3 parties that may make up a future coalition, which would include Scholz. The Social Democrats are the German oldest party and have long partnered with organized labor, but this week one of the German biggest unions called a 2-day nationwide public transit strike, ending just over a day before polls open. His party's best scenario is a grand coalition in which the Social Democrats would play a junior partner to the conservative Christian Democrat Party, CDU. A grand coalition, it would put the SDP party in the familiar role of ensuring that German generous social benefits stay intact even under a conservative-led government. It's the only way we can stop the CDU from rolling back some of the progress, said a 43-year-old man who has been both a machinist and a union member for more than 2 decades. Scholz seemed to hint that political coexistence was possible in an unusually friendly debate exchange on Wednesday with Merz, the man likely to replace him as Chancellor. 3 Ukraine with explosive goggles. Ukraine sought to blast Russian drone operators. A senior Ukrainian intelligence official confirmed the plot to blow up drone goggles, but it was unclear how much effect the scheme had on Russian forces. RAWSEP View the bargaining chips of Ukraine should include the fact that ending the war with concessions to Ukraine will stop loss of Russian lives or stop Russian casualties through Ukrainian combat innovations such as exploding wireless devices, as well as stop loss of Ukrainian lives. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. February 20th, 2025. It was a novel Ukrainian spy plot inspired by what Israeli intelligence had pulled off with exploding wireless devices, and Hezbollah militants hide tiny bombs in the goggles that Russian soldiers use to control drones. Donate those goggles to the Russian military under the guise of humanitarian aid, then wait for the explosions. The Russian news agency TASS reported the suspected sabotage of the goggles earlier this month, and on Thursday a senior Ukrainian official confirmed that Ukraine's military intelligence agency, known as the HUR, developed the scheme. The Ukrainian news outlet Suspiln reported on the explosions earlier Thursday. The Ukrainian plot did not have the same public results as the Israeli one, which killed dozens of people and wounded thousands across Lebanon, including civilians. While many goggle explosions were reported this month, the plot seemed mainly to make Russian soldiers wary about using goggles in the future. At least according to social media posts, no one was reported injured or killed, although the Russian military does not often disclose casualty figures. The senior Ukrainian official, who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss intelligence matters, told the New York Times that there were casualties, but he would not disclose numbers because the operation is ongoing. A video showing the devices being dismantled had previously appeared on a Russian pro-war Telegram channel called Engineers to the Front. The channel's operators claimed that the goggles had been distributed through volunteers without their knowledge and called the attempted attack massive. According to them, the Russian military complained about multiple cases of exploding goggles. For Russia is wooing Western energy companies, but will they return? Industry experts say Western companies will need to weigh potential access to oil and gas riches against political risks and other hazards of doing business in Russia. RAWSEP View. It is rumored that Russia is dangling a way for Trump or his political allies to benefit financially through the lure of Russian fossil fuels. In the opinion of the editor of RAWSEP, this continued use of dirty fossil fuels instead of the clean energy of wind and solar is counterproductive, since clean energy is the energy of the future if we hope to slow climate change. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times, February 23, 2025. Kremlin officials are dangling the prospect of lucrative investment deals for American energy companies, seeking to convince President Trump that economic gains could come from siding with Moscow in ending the war in Ukraine and scrapping economic sanctions On Russia has oil and natural gas, but an effort to lure American or other Western energy companies to Russian projects is likely to encounter skepticism. Because of the recent history of the companies in Russia, a Kremlin financial official was optimistic about pitching the potential for investment by Western companies, including oil producers. Energy companies would need to weigh access to oil and natural gas against pitfalls, including reputational damage from an industry that has financially sustained a government waging war against its neighbor Ukraine. Russia has enormous resources, and scale matters to large energy companies, but above-ground risk is the killer, using industry parlance for political and legal problems.
One introduction. RAWSEP View. The United States government was on track in the Biden administration to reduce the prices for both clean energy heat pumps and clean energy electric cars. Trump tariffs are expected to upset those plans to prevent future air pollution and prevent climate change. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building. For just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses, it is well known from scientific and medical research that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions. Yet the wood burning industry uses the scientifically debunked theory named carbon neutrality of wood burning to argue that wood burning replacing coal burning in industry, and in a trickle-down argument that wood burning should continue for home heating should continue. Presumably because it is called renewable, wood may be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burned tree. But it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burned tree. During those centuries or decades, photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen, and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut down and burn tree. In fact, a living tree closes its pores against the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning, just as humans hold their breath in the presence of PM 2.5 from nearby wood burning. And when a tree closes its pores, the level of photosynthesis that absorbs CO2 pollution goes down. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lung, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom. The Eco-Design Wood Stove and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. RAWSEP View. Purple air. PM 2.5 monitors hanging from the eaves of the house of a near neighbor should be used to measure the level of PM 2.5 in the air hyperlocally in the yards of near neighbors of indoor residential wood burners. If PM 2.5 levels exceed World Health Organization standards of 5 micrograms per cubic meter annually, then that evidence of air pollution from wood burning should lead to the shutdown of that indoor residential wood burning appliance, one appliance at a time if necessary.